What's going on? Are we ever going to see this fight? What's the holdup? Floyd Money Mayweather.
Well, only thing I can do is have patience, like I did before. You know, no one thought the Mayweather-Pacquiao fight would happen, but I had patience. So we must have patience, take our time, and just wait. You know, do I believe the fight is going to happen? I really don't know as of right now. But me and my side, me, Al Heyman, Mayweather Promotions, we're ready to go. So as soon as they say they sign on a dotted line, then it's time to go to training camp.
When you say you're ready to go, what does that mean? Because we've heard the same thing from Conor McGregor. So what's the holdup?
Ready to go for me is they say, Floyd, he signed. And then that's when I can go back to doing my road work, going back to chopping trees, going back to the boxing gym, you know, getting in my zone. And what's the holdup? You know, from what I was told, Conor McGregor has a baby that's due in May with his wife. He has a baby that's due. So after the baby is due, then we'll go from there.
It's not one of those situations where he feels like, you know, he deserves more money and he's not getting offered as much money as he deserves, because that's certainly the kind of indication that he's given in the past.
You have to work your way to become the A side. Now, like I said before, in the UFC, he is the A side. But this is, you know, this is Mayweather Promotions and coming together with UFC, and we're working together, you know. And the reason why we're the A side, because of the numbers. We look at the numbers, as far as our pay-per-view numbers. We look at his pay-per-view numbers, and our pay-per-view numbers, there's no comparison. There's no comparing at all. And far as guaranteed purses, you know, his largest guarantee, from what I was told, was only, you know, $3 million, or no more than $5 million.
And by the way, I'm glad you brought that up, because Lord knows you made over $200 million, probably more than that, fighting with the Pacquiao fight alone. So there's no doubt about that. But educate my listeners about this, Floyd, because you've told me about this in the past. You talked about how you were not always the A team, that you had to wait your turn. Tell that story about you and Oscar De La Hoya. Tell that story.
No, it was not just me and Oscar. I wasn't always the A side. You know, it's been times where I was the A side, but then when I faced certain opponents, I had to take a step back. You know, I even had to take a pay cut before. You know, when I fought Arturo Gatti, I can remember when Top Rank, you know, brought me a contract. I signed the contract. Then weeks later, right before the fight, the contract switched up, and the contract was short. You know. It was short by a couple million. Did I get upset? I didn't cry. I didn't complain. I went to Arturo Gatti turf. His turf was Atlantic City. I went to his turf and fought him on his turf. He was considered the A side, even though I feel like my name was a lot bigger. I thought my name was a lot bigger, but that didn't matter. They said, if you're trying to get to a certain point, you have to make certain sacrifices. With the Oscar De La Hoya situation, Oscar De La Hoya, he chose the weight, he chose the city he wanted to fight in. He even chose my gloves, and that's never been done before. He chose my gloves for me. So only thing I can do is say, listen, I feel I'm the best. I want to work my way to become the A side and never be the B side again. So what I'm going to continue to do is beat every fighter, or every fighter that's competing. That's the A side. I want to beat them so I can be the A side and no longer be the B side.
Floyd Money Mayweather right here with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. Interesting question for you before I let you get on out of here. Just a couple more. You know.
We're on the Stephen A. Smith. We can ask questions all day. This is Stephen A. Smith show.
Well, I appreciate that, bro. Thank you so much. Let me tell you this much, real quick, though. I'm looking at Errol Spence Jr. I know how much love you have for him. He's fighting against Kell Brooks. I'm looking at Keith Thurman. I'm looking at some of these cats on the come up. I know you're willing to come out of retirement to fight up with Conor McGregor. What about anybody in the welterweight or the junior middleweight division?
This fight with Conor McGregor makes this makes business sense. This makes business sense. This is something that's in high demand. I think Keith Thurman, I want to say congratulations to Keith Thurman, Kell Brook, Errol Spence, Danny Garcia, all those guys that's at welterweight. I want to see those guys come together so they can fight one another. Like I said, there's only one guy that's on my radar, and that's Conor McGregor. I'm 40 years old now. I gave the sport 19, 20, 21 years of hard work and dedication, and it's crazy, even like with the fans. When I was Pretty Boy Floyd early on in my career, for the first 10 years, all I did was knock guys out. And once my body broke down, once my hands broke down,
yep.
my body wasn't the same. I still had to, dig into my bag of tricks and still find ways to win, even though I wasn't getting the knockouts later on in my career. They said, "Oh, Floyd," because in the beginning of my career, when I was knocking everybody out, they said, "This kid, he's knocking everybody out, but he can't go the distance." Once I started going the distance, when my body broke down, they said, "Well, he's not a knockout artist." So, a lot of times with people, you can never win. But my thing was to always go out there and win no matter how. No matter how you win, as long as you win.